Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about expansion and factorization. The first part is expanding brackets, where we will learn how to essentially break open these brackets to form simpler versions of certain algebraic expressions. The law of arithmetic tells us that a multiplied by b plus c is equal to ab plus ac, regardless of the values of a, b, and c. So before we begin, there are some special quadratic identities and special identities in general that we need to know about, as highlighted in red. These can be square of sum, which you would have learnt earlier on prior to coming on to expansion and factorization topics, square of difference, difference of squares. Those are the three we need to know. Now, if these are unsure, and students are unsure of this, please let me know in the comments below and I can cover it in a future video. On to our first example. Say, for instance, we have 4a plus 3b. Now, this can be quite a simple question, yet many students may find trouble with this. There are many methods, yet the most common method that I've seen and I prefer to teach is a claw method. This involves drawing a physical sort of a claw-looking shape onto both or all values within the brackets. The value outside of the bracket is to be multiplied into the values inside the bracket individually. The first step in this would be doing 4 times a, which becomes 4a. The second step, as you can see the second red arrow, would be 4 multiplied by 3b. This would become 12b. So that's the first example. If we try a quick one with 3 terms, say for example 5a plus 4b minus 2c, we will do the same here. 5a would be there, and then the second, and finally the third. Keep in mind you do have a negative here, so operations such as positive multiplied by positive gives a positive, and negative multiplied by negative gives a positive, negative multiplied by positive gives negative. These all still apply in expansion and factorization. Now the first one would be 5a, 5 multiplied by a. The second one, as they're both positive, would stay positive, which would become 5 times 4b, 20b. And then the final one has a negative in front, so we need to put a negative first, and then just do 5 times 2c, which becomes 10c. And that is your answer. Keep in mind, a lot of these questions will have extra steps where you need to group certain values together to simplify. And now we will cover one of these in our next example. Let's say, for instance, 3 bracket x minus 2 minus 2 bracket x minus 5 close bracket. Now, if there are 2 terms, you simply just need to draw the respective claws or arrows to each value. So if we were to start off by doing the red arrows, the first one would be 3x, followed by negative 6 because of the minus 2. Now we move on to minus 2 with the green arrows. Now you need to be careful because this green arrow here, the minus 2, must be multiplied with all of the values. So this is where the negative and the negative values come into play. Now, the first one, negative 2 times positive x gives minus 2x, and then negative 2 multiplied by negative 5 because of the two negatives as we mentioned earlier, now becomes positive 10. Here, this is one of the questions where we need to follow on with an extra step to simplify. So I'll put that in. Simplify. Now you have your 3x and negative 2x, which you need to do first, and that becomes x. The second one is negative 6 and positive 10, which becomes positive 4. And there you have it. Now, let's move on to questions with the special identities, as we mentioned earlier above here. For example, we could have, let's see, example, let's try this, a plus 4 close bracket squared. Now, there are two ways you can do this. The first way would be to memorize the special identity and immediately sub in values according to that formula, or you could expand the brackets twice, and what I mean by this is, as this is a square value, you can have it as a plus 4 multiplied by a plus 4. By doing so, you create something similar to this example here, where we had both red and green methods. Now, if we were to draw that out, it would become the red on top here, and then the green on the bottom. So to follow this method, we would have the first red values. If we start with the red, a times a would be a squared, followed by 4a, which concludes the red section. Now we move on to the green section, which is 4a, followed by positive 16. Now all we need to do is simplify, which becomes a squared plus 8a plus 16. There we go. Now, if we are to follow the special identities for square of a sum, as here, we can simply just write the formula out, which becomes a squared plus 8a plus 16. So those are the two methods you can use, method 1 and method 2. Okay.